Look closely at the architecture of a modern human skull. Now watch as we wind the clock backward to our ancient relative, Homo habilis. The structural differences are severe. This anatomical transformation took place over roughly 2 million years, beginning deep in the Pleistocene epoch. For isolated populations of early hominids to expand beyond local territories and achieve global dominance, their entire skeletal framework required a massive, coordinated overhaul. The most obvious factor in this shift is the explosive growth of cranial capacity, a severe increase in brain mass relative to total body weight, formally measured as the encephalization quotient. Simultaneously, the postcranial skeleton below the neck had to be entirely re-engineered to support obligate bipedalism, the mechanical capability to walk fully upright on 2 legs permanently. Popular diagrams routinely depict human evolution as a smooth, steady march from stooped ape to tall, intelligent modern human. The fossil record reveals a jagged series of anatomical trade-offs instead. The ascent of the Homo genus was a rigorous, high-stakes biomechanical trade-off. Every stage was a balancing act between supporting an increasingly energy-dense brain and optimizing the lower body for constant long-distance migration. The genus Homo begins roughly 2 million years ago in the Pleistocene deposits of East Africa, pinpointed near sites like Lake Turkana and the Olduvai Gorge. Here, we observe Homo habilis. Standing a modest 1.2 to 1.5 meters tall, this early hominid lived in small community caves, relied on basic stone tools, and subsisted on a newly carnivorous hunting diet. This chart tracks the evolution of human cranial capacity over the last 2 million years. We establish our starting point with Homo habilis, logging a baseline volume of roughly 700 to 800 cubic centimeters. Fast-forwarding to 1.7 million years ago, a new structural lineage emerges, Homo erectus. Within this lineage, subsets like the Java man demonstrate an aggressive evolutionary jump. The cranial capacity aggressively pushes up to 940 cubic centimeters. Soon after, the Peking man subgroup registers continued expansion, driving the maximum cranial volume up to 1,200 cubic centimeters. Supporting a heavier, larger head required strict physical compromises. Homo erectus underwent a distinct shortening of the arms, indicating that the tree-climbing abilities utilized by their ancestors for arboreal safety were completely lost. To counter this, the lower body adaptively elongating the legs. These new, distinctly human-like proportions provided the mechanical leverage required for constant terrestrial travel over vast distances. This highly mobile bipedal framework allowed the first hominids to organize into successful hunter-gatherer societies and eventually harness the use of fire. Sacrificing arboreal safety for upright walking provided the metabolic surplus necessary to sustain a drastically larger, more capable brain. As early hominids migrated out of Africa and into the colder climates of Europe and Asia during the Middle and Late Pleistocene, their skeletons required further engineering. Homo erectus heidelbergensis, or Heidelberg man, arrived as the structural bridge connecting early bipedal humans to the later robust hominids of the north. The Heidelberg anatomy featured a massively robust craniofacial base. They retained a heavy, ape-like lower jaw that lacked a chin, even as their dentition fully adapted to human standards. Returning to our chart, this intermediate species drives the trendline upward once again, hitting an estimated cranial capacity of 1,300 cubic centimeters. This dense structural lineage culminates roughly 150,000 years ago with the flourishing of Neanderthal man. To survive glacial conditions, Neanderthals developed an incredibly dense, heavy-boned belt. Yet, despite carrying immense osteological weight, they retained a highly efficient bipedal stride. Heidelberg and Neanderthal hominids represent a crucial intermediate phase. The human skeleton temporarily maxed out its absolute physical density to withstand severe environments, while giving the brain the necessary framework to continue expanding. Advancing into the Paleolithic era, or Old Stone Age, we trace the fossil record to the Cro-Magnon rocks of France, the settlements of early modern humans. The Cro-Magnon skeleton featured radical shifts in cranial geometry. The skull pushed upward to form a broad, arched forehead, an elevated nose, and a remarkably flat, orthognathous face. The heavy mandibles of the Pleistocene ancestors were gone, yielding to strong jaws that now featured a distinct, well-developed chin. On our data chart, this era marks the absolute zenith of human brain volume. The Cro-Magnon trendline peaks sharply at 1,650 cubic centimeters. That measurement is considerably larger than the average brain size of humans walking the Earth today. Cro-Magnon proved that raw cranial volume maxed out during the Late Stone Age. To progress further, human evolution was forced to abandon sheer size, shifting entirely towards structural hyperefficiency. Moving to the modern era, roughly 10,000 years ago, Homo sapiens sapiens proliferates as the dominant living species. Yet our final data point reveals an unexpected downward trajectory. From the Cro-Magnon peak of 1650, modern human cranial capacity drops down to an average of 1,450 cubic centimeters. This drop in volume is actually an elite evolutionary advantage. The modern skull traded heavy, energy-costly mass for a much lighter, architecturally optimized frame. We achieved this weight-saving adaptation through a slight raising of the skull cap, paired with a significant, deliberate thinning of the skull bones. Below the neck, the final masterpiece of bipedal engineering was finalized, the formation of 4 precise curves within the vertebral column. These 4 curves act as a highly tuned shock absorption system. They distribute kinetic impacts evenly, allowing a lighter skeleton to easily support a dense head during rapid, sustained upright movement. Organic evolution is a continuous, unbroken mechanism. The forces of gene mutation and natural selection act on our bodies today exactly as they did 2 million years ago. Anthropologists projecting the form of Homo sapiens futuris predict this biomechanical editing will persist, anticipating skeletal refinements like the reduction of the 5th finger and the continued shaping of a more dome-like cranium. Human dominance rests on a framework optimized for structural efficiency and biomechanical balance, the culmination of a 2 million-year engineering project.